Okay, go ahead, Gary.
Okay, ready? You guys ready, Shane? Yeah. You guys ready, Chris? Down here, Steve? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Planning Commission meeting tonight. If you would please join us in a word of prayer from Member Wilson, and then rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads before Thee this evening at the Planning and Zoning meeting. We're grateful for all we have. We recognize Your hand in what we do have. We ask that Thy Spirit might attend us this night as we discuss the affairs of this county and the good people that live here, that we may be able to be guided in wise decisions and helping the county move forward. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any changes to the agenda? Any recommendations? If not, we'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second over here to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any conflicts of interest for any items on the agenda for tonight for any members of the Planning Commission? Haven't heard none. We'll move on to a period of public comment. So whenever the public comes out, we always try and over-educate, just so people understand the process, where we're at, where we're going, because it can be a little bit confusing to us, no, to you, hopefully. Hopefully we know what we're doing. We do have a legislative item on the agenda tonight and two administrative items. And the difference between that, we'll discuss it as we go along, but the primary difference at this point that I want you to understand is that there is a period of public hearing for item number 6, which is a proposed amendment to the code for slopes. So the public will have a time specifically to come up and give public comment for that period, because that is a public hearing. The other two items that are on our agenda are administrative discussions. So there won't be a specific time for the public to come and comment on those items. However, we're about to open the entire meeting up for public comment now. And that's a time when you can comment really on item number 7 and item number 8, because you will have time to comment on item number 6. What we do during that time is we listen to you, we take notes, and what we try and do is answer those questions during our discussion for those items so that you don't feel like we're not listening to you, because it can be a little bit weird during these times because we just simply don't have time for dialogue going back and forth. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. It can seem a little bit awkward, but we're not ignoring you is my point. Having said that, we are going to open up this next little bit of time here for public comment. So if you do have any public comment for anything at all in the county, good, bad, indifferent, or specifically related to anything on the agenda, I just want to ask you to come up and state your name into the microphone for the record so we can capture your thoughts or concerns.
Hello, Jim Flint, 538 North Main Street, Brigham City. I think you know why we're happy to be here. It's been 6 years in the making for Golden Hills Estates. And as you see in your outline, it's been tabled 3 times. We're back here tonight with having satisfied the frontage issue and also the westerly 3 lots. And just want you to know we're very excited to be here tonight. It has been a long time. Several reports in the making: hydrogeological, geotechnical, geological, septic reports, water rights, and I'm not used to speaking at this time during the public comments period, but if you do have any questions, we'd be more than happy to address them during the appropriate time.
Absolutely, and I forgot to mention there will be time obviously for the applicant at those two points as well. But thank you for that comment. Any other public comment for anything else?
Bart Smith, Mountain Green, here representing Highlands Water Company. Just kind of addressing item number 8 on the Rome subdivision preliminary plat. I'm sure each of you received a letter from Cottonwood Mutual Water Company, in your packet. I just want to state that a lot of the protests that were stated in that letter are incorrect. We have checked with the Public Service Commission to verify service district areas, and because both companies are not municipalities but privately owned, well, Cottonwoods is a mutually owned, there is no real set service districts. As far as they can't just come in and claim, this is our ground, you can't serve these people. If you have that property and you want to go join them, you can, which is interesting that they are saying we're encroaching in their service district when in fact they've overlapped our service district, but whatever. Anyway, we had good discussion with the Public Service Commission on that when they clarified that. There was a 10-inch line that was installed by Staker Parson when the road up to the school was put in. That line was never dedicated to either company, water company. In our communication with CW Land over the last few years, they've always told us whichever water company can serve us first, that's who we're going with. And that's how Staker Parsons developed that piece. It was never a line dedicated to Cottonwood Mutual, never dedicated to Highlands Water. It's just whoever could come up with the ability, the source to provide, that's who they were going to go with. Anyway, there's other questions that may arise in your discussion. I just wanted you to know, I know how you limit the discussion. If you have questions that I can answer on behalf of Highlands Water during your discussion, I'm here. I know you don't like to do that, but anyway. We've been working with CW Land, got everything worked out, good to go. I think whatever Cottonwoods Mutual is trying to do, is kind of trying to delay it, is, there's really no validity in that, what they've stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, so we're going to go out of public comment, and we're going to move on to item number 6 on our agenda.
Good evening, my name is Lance Evans. I'm the planning director for Morgan County. I'm sorry, the projector, the computer is working on connecting to some of our files. And now that I'm up here, it looks like they're good to go. But the first item we have is a code amendment, so there's really not much to show you on this one. This is a proposed code amendment for the geologic hazard subdivision ordinance. You will remember a couple years ago, we updated and did a major update on the geologic hazard ordinance to bring it up to speed and really bolster it up after 10 years of use. As we did that, and as we've worked for the last couple of years, there's been a few items that we caught a little more in our requirements than maybe we should have, and that have been difficult and challenging and have not really had a lot to deal with safety issues. And just to back up a little bit, the concept of the geologic hazard ordinance is we cast a very wide net so that we make sure we catch the right soils types and other factors so that we can get those addressed and we can build safe homes is the concept, safe homes and buildings and all that. With that wide net, we added soils types that were the main trigger, but there was other elements such as slope that it's kind of a secondary trigger, but it was a little bit gray. And we've worked with Bill Black, the county's geologist. He's our outside consulting geologist, but not on the county staff. And he and Mark Miller, who's the county consulting engineer, and myself looked at these elements and how we were using it and came up with these items, these changes. They're really mostly from Bill, who works very in depth with this. And I'm just going to walk through the big ones. There are some that are just typos and corrections and like that. There's a couple small items. But in section 9 on page 13 of 73, in your staff report, in 85I9A1, what we add there is that an existing geologic report that meets the requirements of 85I17 may be submitted in lieu of the statement. In 85I17, which we'll talk about in a bit, it lists all the different categories and elements: landslides, soils, slopes, those types of things. So each application that comes in and we're looking at will have to, one, is it triggered through one of those 17 things? And this changes repeatedly through here, and basically allows Bill or whoever the county geologist would be to look at the application and the scope of work that we get in and see if it's really required or not in these soil conditions. So we look at just soils, but if it has the soil but it doesn't have any slopes, okay. Looking into section 17, we don't have to require the applicant to go through what can be a very expensive and difficult geologic hazard investigation. It allows us the ability to look at the specifics of the site a little more in depth. That's also added in section 2. In section 4 of this section, we just changed the wording that for new investigations, it doesn't apply to older ones, but for new investigations, we have to have $2 million of professional errors and omissions liability insurance. That number has gotten a lot of pushback, really high, and everybody says it's really high, and man, can't you lower that? But we didn't propose any changes here because of my recollection of the process as we went through it is the impacts potentially of a poor decision could be significant and could easily get to that amount of money if it involved even if 2 or 3 homes. So we've left that there at that high level so that the geologist has to kind of back up. On page 15, it's another just wording change. We have several places the code references specific geologic bulletins from the Utah Geologic Service. Those will still be applicable, but the bulletins that we have listed in the code are actually out of date. And so Bill's recommendation was that those be removed. The Utah Geologic Service bulletins still apply on those topics, but rather than updating our code every time they update one of their bulletins, we're just going to take those out and have more of a blanket statement to address those aspects in the other parts of the code. And I think that is the significant changes. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah,
Hold on, sorry, you have one more thing. Did you have one more?
I got one more, and actually, we've added a section on page 35 that says that additions to existing structures are exempt from the provisions in this section. So, additions to structures, if it's an existing structure, we feel that that's showing enough that it's not, probably not going to add to any issues. If there have been geologic issues, they wouldn't be able to do an addition, so we've already exempted, and already part of this is non-habitable structures are not affected by this. We'd like to add additions to that. So if you're doing an addition to an existing home, you wouldn't have to do a geologic hazard study.
Debbie, you had a question?
yeah, back on page 10, it goes along with what you just said, that if you could do an addition, you wouldn't trigger the geohazard, but it says, it refers to if no expansion of the existing structure footprint. So that's okay, because, is that talking about something completely separate?
Which section you,
On
page 10 of 73 or page 10 of the, a couple page numbers?
page 10 of 73. In the second paragraph, well, third paragraph, there's a one line. But it says, also remodeling of existing structures designed for human occupancy may occur without compliance with this article if no expansion of the existing structure footprint is proposed. But then just later on, which you read, it's saying that you can expand the footprint.
Correct.
So that they don't conflict with each other.
As long as you're building on the same footprint, you don't need to do it.
Right.
We're adding in that even if you're expanding that footprint, doing an addition on a building, a habitable structure,
Okay.
that would be exempt as well.
And then it says in the red, it says other properties may also be exempt from certain study requirements as identified.
Correct.
So that's referring to
The section,
changing the footprint, for example, that you just read. Is that the other properties may also be exempt? Are they identified other properties or just other properties in general, maybe? Or are they specific other properties that are actually listed? Or is it just a general statement, a
well,
catch-all?
so in section 17, they're going through landslides,
Right.
slopes, those types of elements. And so it's referring specifically to those. So other properties that don't meet those requirements or do may be exempted. So we're looking at, I'm trying to find it here for some examples.
Just other properties in general,
It's way longer than that. And the 17H, rockfall is a type of landslide. Does it have any rockfall issues? Or if it doesn't have rockfall, liquefaction, debris flow, those types of elements, soil liquefaction again, then they may not, it gives the county geologist, may look at these and go, oh, it's triggered on soils, but there's none of these other factors of liquefaction or landslide, slope stability, seismic issues. It allows him to look at, is there any secondary causes? And if there isn't, then it may be exempted.
and that's up to our county geologist,
Correct.
whether he wants to exempt it.
So in cases like with debris flows, liquefaction, landslides, would he be able to identify those without a soils analysis?
Yeah, I believe they have the mapping and the other studies to look at those areas. And I think if it was in question at all, he would require it. But, we did one south of Morgan City here, off Highway 66. It was a flat farm field. It was really not going to be an issue building a single-family home. But our current code required them to get a geologic hazard study, when really that was, soil type was the only thing that was triggered. There was no other issues there. And we just thought that that's not the type of thing we wanted. It was, the odds that there's a geologic hazard problem, it was not worth the cost to benefit for the rest of the issues. So that's what we wanted, that's what we're trying to tighten up in this, is the geologist gets to look at those other factors and go, just because you hit soils doesn't mean you have to. We're still going to use soils as the main trigger to start the discussion, but, because that's a nice, broad, easy way that everybody can look at that map and see what's going on. But then, as we dig into it and the geologists look at it, and the geotechnical engineers look at it, they can say, but there's no other factors. You don't have to spend $10,000 on this geologic study.
So even if there's Norwood Tough, if it's flat piece of ground, he may say,
Well,
or
it would be a case-by-case basis where the geologist would look at,
that he could.
yeah,
Okay.
potentially.
Any other questions?
there's no other questions, we did get one letter of comment I thought I'd read in at this point. Commission, Planning Commission, Director Evans, I'm just going to read it regarding this project, or this code amendment. And it's from Kent Wilkerson at Cascade Civil Engineering. He states, I thought the definitions of the county land use code had been updated with the carefully updated geologic hazard ordinance, geohazard. I find they are not. I see it is on the agenda again, and I offer some thoughts. The definitions arbitrarily assign 25% and greater slopes as non-buildable. This is not defensible from my understanding. Even a zero slope can be hazard with liquefaction and other seismic conditions. I recommend that the county implement and more fully engage the quality hazard ordinance established. 25% is a good rule of thumb for further considerations based on slope, but it is not definitive. To be more precise, I offer the following in editable text as first as a consideration of amending the land use code to engage the geohazard ordinance as follows. MA has definitions for buildable area, density, hillside area, and lot restricted. I am sure staff and the commission can improve on the above. Summary considerations. The current definitions conflict with the geohazard ordinance. For example, the geohazard ordinance does not mention the 25% slope and does not define the square footage of buildable area for restricted lots. 2, from a practical application, 5,000 square feet is very large and does not consider the market for tiny houses under 500 square feet. Attainable, affordable housing. 5,000 is arbitrary, why not 6,000 or 3,000? A typical home footprint does not require such a large space. Finally, attached is a tax value of one of Summit County project I am familiar with. It is built into the slope with the foundation that I estimate to be over 30 feet tall. It's a $7.3 million home built on a 40% slope with a man-made slope road above and below. This single recreational property pays over $55,000 a year in taxes and secondary fiscal impact considered is often 2 times this. Many more examples are available. From a practical standpoint, geohazards ordinance references the Kaiser 1972 figures. While the illustration is vintage, it does little to illustrate a key 25% point. A 25-foot home with some wall setback, the walls as shown would only need to be 8 feet tall. Properly constructed is a key term, but the current definitions carte blanche to condemn with no technical support. This is a total takings of some existing lots. Geohazards ordinance intent was to better protect, not destroy. The county must otherwise recommend a zero value or find equitability such as recreational, seasonal, etc. Interestingly, Kaiser in the same text indicated that Wasatch Peaks Ranch has some of the worst conditions in the entire county. The county has carefully addressed the issues and found solutions. The 25% standard is not found anywhere in the ordinance. It seems arbitrary and should be removed from the definitions and let geohazard ordinance do its job. I hope this offers some useful thoughts from the commission to implement the ordinance more fully. Thank you for your service. Ken Wilkerson. I got that letter earlier in the week. Asked Bill Black about it. His response was that the 25% slope threshold is a fairly common standard of practice that has its use, and it is used by not only many municipalities in Utah, but also other states as far back as the 1980s. The threshold is intended to protect against a broad suite of issues, including erosion, visual aspects, and overall slope stability. As Kent indicated, it is somewhat arbitrary threshold and can vary between municipalities. For instance, Salt Lake County uses 30% instead of 25%. In Salt Lake County, over half the slope failures occurred on hillsides where the slopes range between 31 and 60% steepness. That is documented in the UGS guidelines, and that is why Salt Lake City selected the 30% threshold. Weaver County uses 25% threshold, similar to Morgan County, but allows restricted lots, unlike Morgan County, where the slopes are steeper. Morgan County has a lot of landslide-prone terrain, so I don't think the 25% threshold is unreasonable or denies prudent use. There isn't any hard data that defines 25% slope threshold, but is commonly used because risk increases substantially beyond that point for issues to arise. The modification shown on the diagram that Kent provided is a lot-specific slope modification. But how might such a slope modification impact stability or the overall slope? Specifically, the diagram shows a cut and a retaining wall. What is the impact of that cut on the stability of the slope above and below? Can there be a deep-seated failure that ignores the retaining? Where will the removed material go? Will the slope modification impact stability of another area? How will the modification interface with the neighboring lots? Will it have visual impacts? Will it change the drainage and erosion patterns or cause other logistical concerns? Slope areas that require extensive modification increase the risk of those sorts of questions. Some of those questions can be answered by engineering studies, but the intent is to minimize the potential for unanticipated issues and increase risk for developers, buyers, and neighboring homeowners by avoiding developing on steep slopes. Bill. I think, sorry to read that, but, oh wait, I can summarize that. I think Kent might have some valid issues, and if there's, we could certainly do more discussions about the 25% slope, but Morgan County's had that in place for quite a while. And as Bill points out, it's kind of a good standard. It allows us to look at this. If there are geologic areas that they want to do studies and look at other aspects and do modifications, that potential is out there. But we definitely want to err on the side of caution and let's at least investigate it, not just make the 25% go away.
Mr. Chair, I have one more thing,
Okay.
Lance. I'm sorry, I missed it. On page 11 of the 73, make sure that I understand what it's saying. The H that was changed, all properties located on alluvial fans and drainage channels subject to flash flooding and/or debris flows. So if you're on an alluvial fan and you're not subject to flash flooding or debris flow, you don't have to do? Is that how I read that?
Correct.
And the geologist will determine,
Correct.
he'll come out and look, okay.
And it's really just combining H and I together.
Right, but before, it just says all properties located on alluvial fans was before. There was no qualifier.
Right.
But, okay.
It allows him to look at the property on the alluvial fan and say, oh, wait, yeah, we need to do a study on this one. Or no, this is not a problem.
Okay.
And we rely on their professional judgment to do that.
Okay, if there's no more questions for staff on this, we need to go into public hearing on this issue as well, where we'll ask Lance to reread that entire letter for us under the...
Yeah.
No, I think it was valid to hear that. So can I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
And a
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're now in public hearing for this item. This is a time for the public to come up and specifically comment about this proposed amendment. Any public comment on this? No? Okay. We have another motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to go out of public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're now out of public hearing. Any further discussion before decision? Actually, I said that, and I'm going to answer it myself. The only thing I would comment on is, I don't disagree with the discussion that you just read, but the amendment tonight is really focused on these changes, and the question before us is really, should these changes be adopted, yes or no? I think there's always room, certainly for the public or anybody to propose a change to any of our amendments. That's our right as Americans to be able to do that. So, but in this particular case, I think we keep it specific to the changes that are here. So, having said that, if there's no further discussion, do we have a motion for item number 6?
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval to the County Commission for the revisions of Morgan County Code Title 8-5I, amending the Geological Hazard Ordinance Standards and Regulations for Development in Potential Geologic Hazardous Areas of Morgan County based on the findings in the May 27, 2021 staff report.
We have a motion
I second.
and a second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. All right, item number 7.
Sorry for that delay. This is a proposed preliminary plat for Golden Hills Estates. It has been changed and modified since our previous meetings in December to be reduced to 13 single-family lots, at least 160 acres in size, on 2,156 acres. Planning commission, well, you guys had a hearing on it, and there were some changes and modifications that needed to take place. We did a code amendment to reduce the frontage requirements, and because the basis for that being that overly restricted at almost a quarter mile long for each lot. And that took some time through the process, but this has come back and the applicant has made modifications that now the county believes, the county staff is recommending approval. There's some standard conditions, but one key is that the fire suppression requirements still stay in place that were discussed in previous applications. It's requiring 20,000 gallon tanks on each site, each parcel, among other things. Also that a partial boundary adjustment is recorded before the final plat is submitted. Currently the property is 2,600 acres, we need 480 acres of that. Does not have a road access, and so that's why the area has dropped from 16 lots to 13. And so that area will be pulled out, and we're just going to plat the request is for the 13 lots to be platted. Let's see. Oh, I mean, we've done a lot of work on this. The applicant's done a lot of work, as Jim mentioned earlier in the public comments. We believe now that the plat meets the code requirements, and I recommend approval.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Questions for staff on this? It's not like we haven't discussed it before. I don't. Let's start over here. Anybody have any questions? I don't.
The 480 acres, is that all the west side that's on here, or?
I would almost say northwest, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything over here? Questions for staff? No? Okay, well, this is an administrative, so it's a little bit different than, we're not going to go to public hearing for this. We certainly would offer time for the applicant to speak, but as we've learned in the past, you don't necessarily have to speak if you don't want to, but this is the applicant's time if you'd like to come up and address anything or say anything. No? Okay. Any further discussion on this? If not, ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval to the County Commission for the Golden Hills Estate Subdivision Preliminary Plat Application Number 20.037, allowing for a 13-lot subdivision of land located at approximately 5536 South Highway 66 in unincorporated Morgan County based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated May 27, 2021.
Okay, we have a motion to forward a positive recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Pretty uneventful, isn't it? Okay, on to item number 8. We'll give just a minute for the folks to leave before we move on to the next one.
This is a preliminary,
Yes.
this is the Rome subdivision preliminary plat application. It was previously approved as the basin concept plan. Also, the basin development agreement was approved, I'm trying to remember when, several months ago, last year. And
Several years in the making.
yes, and the applicant the concept is proposing 183 lots. It's 11 single-family lots, 77 single-family patio lots, and 95 townhomes. Let's see. The property is located north of Old Highway Road and east of Trappers Loop, in the old Warner Pit location, just as a reminder. That map is totally worthless. I'll just point out that the access road comes off of Old Highway Road down to the south. There's 2 access roads coming into the property. They are adequately spaced. Over to the west side of the property are the townhomes areas. We have the smaller single-family lots, and adjacent to Ronald's Ranch, the larger lots to make a better transition from the Ronald's Ranch, more consistent with the size of lots in that neighborhood. The applicant has put in several amenities, some tot lots, swimming pool, trails, sidewalks, that'll all be maintained by the homeowners association. We have service letters from for all the service providers. I'll talk about more on that in just a second. It meets the intent of the town center zoning. It meets the requirements of the development agreement that was completed in 2020. And staff is recommending approval. This is a preliminary plat. Your recommendation will be to go to the county commission. We did have some concerns. We have received from the applicant a will serve letter from Highlands Water Company that stated that they have the ability and the capacity to service them, which meets the code requirement in our preliminary plat application. As mentioned previously, Cottonwoods Mutual Water has submitted a letter basically, I guess I would say outlining some concerns that this is in the Cottonwood Mutual Water area boundary, and that they have been working on looping a system there. We also received just today, this afternoon, a letter from attorney Curtin McConkie, thank you, Christopher Bramhall, to the attorney at the Highlands Water Company, and basically calling out that that they are at, sorry, I have that backwards. It's from the Highlands Water Company attorney to the Cottonwood Mutual Water's attorney. requesting that they would withdraw the letter that was submitted outlining their concerns. And it goes into detail on that there is some conflicts between the boundary here, but that CW Land has the ability to make arrangements for water services where they would like. And that's the long and short of it. As planning staff, we are still recommending approval. We have a letter from a water company that meets the code requirements for a preliminary plat. It's a little bit difficult with this issue raised about the boundaries between the water companies. That is something that I think that the state needs to get resolved between those private water companies. But for Morgan County, I'm not sure that that's the appropriate place for us to make the decision that one letter does count or does not. It's a water company that has the ability to provide those services to this property, and there's been a lot of work done. So staff is recommending approval tonight. Happy to discuss any of those details or have any questions.
You can go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Or-
Okay, Lance,
Whoever wants to go
on
first.
the will serve letter that we received tonight from Highlands, it only is talking about service for 84 ERUs, and this has 183.
I'll let the applicant address that.
Yeah, we can.
I thought it said it was the correct number.
It's 84 ERUs. They're using secondary water of their own, so
Are
don't
they?
need that. They only need 84 ERUs for the 183 connections.
Because of the multifamily aspect?
Yes.
Anyway, we'll let the applicant
Well,
address that.
there-
Yeah.
I'm not sure of that, we'll reach it. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, do you have any questions? Do you want to hear from the applicant first, ask that question? Or there-
No, I was, Lance had given us the will serve. Secondary water.
Yeah, would you mind speaking to it? Or whoever representing Highlands Water or the applicant?
Or maybe the applicant as far as secondary
Yeah, the
water.
applicant, whoever wants to speak to it.
We never,
Just help us clarify who it is.
Absolutely, Vice Chair, Chair, Planning Commissioners, thank you very much. My name is Greg Day, I'm the Vice President of CW Land, 1222 Legacy, Crossing Boulevard, Centerville, Utah. Regarding the question, so it's equivalent residential units. And so, depending upon the type of unit, they have different quantities, and so we do have multifamily, we do have single family. We have 100 shares of Northwest Irrigation that we're going to be using for outdoor use, and so that helps us with the ERUs. So to provide culinary service, we only need the 84 ERUs, and that's, I think, what you're talking about. If we were to use Highlands Water for outdoor use, we would need additional ERUs beyond that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. We'll just-
thank you.
I'm happy to, while I'm up here, if you guys have any additional questions, we work very hard. I know we've been at this for about 36 months. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want me to address the letters that came in today, I'm more than happy to do that. Whatever you guys need.
I don't know. I think, I appreciate it. Actually, we probably have some more questions for staff, just trying to wrestle through this, so if you could just give us a minute, I appreciate it. I'm just I just want to understand this, this water dispute, I guess, for lack of a better term. I appreciate what you said, your recommendation, just how, is there anything in the development agreement that specifies that one water company versus another water company, or?
No, it does not.
Okay. So, and I always like this checklist that you give us. So according to our code for preliminary, we have everything we need for the application to be complete.
Right.
Any questions for staff? Discussion?
So Lance, on the east side, wasn't there supposed to be an agricultural easement? I thought there, when we were discussing this in the past, there was supposed to be an easement between the two, where the open space is showing, like to the east of lots 116, 225, 224.
Well, abutting the Rollins Ranch open space parcels,
Yeah.
no, we wouldn't do an agricultural.
I think that was the one further up the road, wasn't it? That was-
Well, I mean, there is the issue of agricultural, the old Trappers Loop Road that goes, was the line in that, roughly that area. There isn't an agricultural access for all the properties that go up to the north. And that exists, but it would not affect this property.
Okay.
It's a little bit further to the east.
Okay, so
It skirts at a part of it and then continues on up.
does that need to be in a note?
I'm sorry?
Does that need to be in a note then, or not at all?
Well, no, because that's an agricultural access easement, it's not like it's agricultural property that, we traditionally put, we have, in a lot of subdivisions, it's adjacent to agriculture. We put a plat note on those plats to say, hey, you're next to a farm, there's farming gonna go on here, you know, so people, at least we try to tell them that, hey, there's gonna be operations and things are gonna be happening, and that's the only thing we really can do. But in this case, where they're adjacent to homes, and then the middle school to the north, wouldn't.
Okay.
I do remember what you're talking about now. It was the southeast portion, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't, there was a question about will the easement remain for agricultural purposes for them to access some further back?
That
further
would
back.
change with this property.
That would just run, the easement would run with the land, right?
Well, it's actually in the Rollins Ranch.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this doesn't affect that at all?
Correct.
Thank you.
I could have said that.
But you didn't.
And Lance, I have a question. In your discussions with Mark Miller, can you explain again his different zones as far as water with the well as opposed to, because the pump's not operational yet, is it? In Whisper Ridge?
I'm not.
So maybe
well,
explain.
this says this. So I think Bart can give you a better update of the status of the exact status of where Highlands is. I mean, they're doing a lot of work. Well, Mark Miller, Morton County engineer, looked at all the correspondence and the approvals from the Division of Drinking Water and what they have. He had recommended that this is in kind of this lower tier of off-Old Highway is Zone 1, essentially, quote unquote, and that there is adequate pressure and water to service this area. A little higher up, it's a little bit more vague, but along here and I can't think of the other subdivision we were talking about. I believe it was the commercial, or Canyon View commercial. In Canyon View West, we were looking at it, and that's also on this lower tier. So that wouldn't be an issue. Yeah, but as we go up the hill, I think there's still work to be done. But Mark can give you an update on exactly where they're at. This development will require more improvements to that, and that's been worked out between the developer and the water company. So
Yeah, I guess-
they have to do improvements to the water system, but they have the water capacity and the ability to serve this area, is the county engineer's determination.
That Highlands Water has the capacity to service this, but the improvements for delivery of that water need to be made?
Well, yes,
Okay. Obviously, the connection and,
yeah,
but as far as source capacity,
correct. Would you guys like to add anything to that?
I guess I have a question. I know,
Love to.
I have a question for the water company. if that's-
would you mind, Mark, answering a few questions for us? I mean, I'll preempt this just a little, if you don't mind. Water's a concern in Mountain Green. Everybody wants to know about capacity. Obviously, the will serve says that you have capacity. What's the current state of water in Mountain Green? What requirements is it going to take to get this delivered? Do you have to do other improvements, et cetera?
Okay, so in regards to this particular project, we have, within Highlands Water, we have 3 different zones. So the low, and Lance kind of maybe referred to this tier 1, but we have zone 1 at the bottom, we have a middle zone, we have an upper zone. Currently, our well will pump to all of the low zone. And so we have a 14-inch line coming out of the well to Old Highway, and then the improvements that the developer will be doing would be to get that across Old Highway and into their property. So that's part of our, you know, they don't want to go put all that in until they get the preliminary, right? But the source capacity, our well has adequate capacity. Currently, Highlands Water has 700 gallons a minute between the springs at the lowest flow time and the well. And the well's we've been working under a restricted area amount until we get a land use agreement for source protection signed by Dwayne Johnson. It's sitting on his attorney's desk waiting for him to sign it. Once he gets that done, our well goes, so the well currently has 500 gallons a minute. Technically, we're a little bit higher because the springs are closer to about 300. Right now, at the lowest point, 300 gallons a minute. But the well's been approved for up to 500 gallons a minute, and then it will go up to 1,440 gallons a minute once Mr. Johnson signs that land use agreement. So we have a lot of capacity also. But currently, at our 700 whatever gallons a minute, that still covers everything that's needed at this point. With them being in the low zone, that well can pump to them. And part of the improvements that will go in, besides putting in the new lines, is also a backup generator at our well site, just for emergency purposes, if that's the case. So there's plenty of water that will pump anywhere through that low zone.
And that's
We
coming
have-
from the south, right? That well is to the south of this property?
That well is backed by the rest stop, this area behind the bank. We have a current booster pump that's being constructed in Whisper Ridge, and that's kind of what you were talking about. That booster pump, as the water is pumped over to that area, that booster pump will pump up to our water tanks up above. That booster pump needs to be operating before any other subdivisions like Frontier Estates, Shady Creek, ones we're working on, we're in that higher zone. In order for us to be able to have that water, the additional water, that booster pump has to be. But currently, the well pumps to all that low area. So the low areas, we've got the capacity for those.
What's the idea with that pump? Is that just whenever that tank drops down, that pump comes on and tops it back up?
Yes,
That's it,
yes.
and then it's gravity fed?
We've installed a pretty intricate telemetry system. So our tanks, the well, the booster pumps all talk to each other into our office. So as soon as any of the tank gets down to a certain level, it automatically starts pumping water up. So everything will be monitored. Each tank will be monitored. We know exactly. We have 4 different water tanks up there. Each one, 2 of them are at a lower level, 2 of them at a higher level. We have PRV stations that control the flow. That's why we have the different zones. So it's turning into a pretty sophisticated water system with a lot of capacity in the near future. But the booster pump is in the process. It's being constructed. We're getting probably maybe within 30 days, we'll be ready for the state to come out and inspect and give us an operating permit. But that's not required for the low zone. So
That's what I was trying to understand, that you have
Our
different
low
sources.
zone, that well, our well last summer, once we got it online, it pumped to all the lower zone, took enough pressure off of our springs. We did not have to have any more outside restrictions on watering. We do not have a secondary system. All in everything Highlands Water serves, with the exception of this one, they have to use all culinary water for outside use. But once that well was pumping, we had ample water last year, and we hopefully, even in a dry year, we hope that will be the same this year. Any questions?
Yeah, is there is there a line now from the well up to the tanks?
Yes.
The li-
That line has been installed since 2007.
Yeah, that one.
So that is in effect. So will this development not be served from water from the storage tanks? It'll always be directly from a well in the lower zones?
It could be, but not
What's-
always, because like in the wintertime, we have 8 springs that are, we will use our springs as long as, because it's cheap, we're not pumping water up, let the gravity deliver it. We have 8 different springs. We have been able to, I think currently, right now, we're only using one of those 8 springs. Well, let's go back maybe up until the people start getting their sprinklers turned on. We've been able to operate on just one spring. So through the winter months, they will be on spring water, like everyone else on the system. And then when our springs can't meet the demand, the well will kick on and the well will pump directly. It's a variable pump. It'll go directly into all that low zone.
So,
And then the water will be pumped up into those tanks and mixed with the spring water. It'll be a mixture of spring and well water.
but when this development is in, will the water be going up to the tanks and then back down to the development, or is it be going directly from the well?
Directly from the well to most likely. As long as the well's pumping, it's pushing water into all those pipes. Now, if the well doesn't need to pump, and there's still enough spring water coming in, there's a chance there could be some water that could come down through. I don't know how that'd be something that the engineers would have to look at that and see if that's possible. But
So does it,
as it comes down, that water will serve all the higher elevations first.
I think I understand.
And so if it gets to that point, that well could just pump like it did last summer, it just pumped all the low area. I was on well water for the first time in all my life last.
So the well is just going to be pushing water into the system,
Yes. Whenever it's turned
going
on.
different ways?
Whenever it's turned on.
Right. So just to clarify, is there another pipe that comes into the subdivision from the north? So
Not
that-
yet, not yet.
But that's the idea, if
Yeah,
they were
future
coming up the
plans
springs?
From Trappers Point subdivision, that's the end of the line, but hopefully that will come all the way down Trappers Loop and tie into the highway.
To loop the
And then we
system?
have that loop, and that's even a better scenario at that point in time.
Thanks for that, I appreciate it. You guys want any discussion on this?
I'm still a little concerned with the cloud of service areas with the state. I would be better with the Public Service Commission with a letter to us clarifying.
But you can
Their
have that
position.
final.
That's gonna be my next question, what's the next step with this? It's different than a normal subdivision in that, the development agreement, this is preliminary, is this preliminary and final? Or are we
That's
going,
preliminary.
This is preliminary plat.
so final will come before us as well?
Correct. So, and then this is gonna go to the county commission. Depending on what you do, the next step would be to go to the county commission. And then, the preliminary plat is approved, and then begin construction and bring those elements, in preparation for the final plat.
So can you put a condition in on this, that water needs to be resolved before it comes to final?
Yes, you could.
That's what I do. Just put the condition, whatever, they gotta have it worked out, so that there's no argument between both of them, that it's set, and then that, so the county's not involved, and then move on.
We could, I just don't, I don't know where the county steps in and civil matters kick in, I don't know. I mean, do we need to get a read from this on the county attorney or anything? Or, I mean, we're making a recommendation, and obviously the county commission can
Yeah.
discuss that, but.
And we can get more clarity before the county commission meeting, and also what we want to do. I guess I would say Highlands Water and CW Land done good faith to do as much as they can. This issue came up this week. We have, the code requirement is that a water company provide criteria and that show that they have the capacity and the ability to serve. They have that. So, I mean, it's meeting the code requirements. There's been some question about the boundaries. Highland Water Company has stated that that is not an issue, that it's private water companies and there are no specific boundaries. It's not like a city and two cities that are fighting annexing over something. It's a much more fluid boundary, it sounds like. We can give confirmation of that.
I see. So the question would, our code says that the applicant has to have well served from a water company. So there's a potential question of whether or not it's from a water company that can service that area? And is it, you're the expert, that's why I'm more of an expert, so I'm looking to you.
I feel really sorry for you. I think, to me, for preliminary plat, if you wanted to do a condition of approval, that would be my recommendation, that we get a letter from the water, drinking water, that states, or actually it'd be the Public Services Commission, that states that,
Just get a read from them as a condition for final.
X boundary or Y boundary or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go to final without some definitive answer of who's gonna supply the water, so I don't think it would hurt them in any way to have a condition.
Conditions, absolutely no big deal.
So-
And really, in reality,
That's okay,
we're going to
we'll
get this
talk about that.
resolved with or without a condition, we're going to get this discussed. and
Yeah, it's gonna have to be,
resolved.
obviously, before any homes get built. So just to kind of bring the discussion along, there's two opinions. One is for a condition, the other is, would be what, to postpone until we get that letter. That's kind of the two things I see right now, so I'll get a read from everybody. What are you guys thinking about those two options?
Well, I think as long as we're meeting, checking the boxes, that's where we're at.
Okay.
Put the condition on it so that it has to take place before final, and
Okay, Debbie?
I guess, I'm,
We all have an equal voice.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around
Yeah.
the infrastructure, like you say with the line, is the line big enough to go, what size of line do you have right now going from the well?
but what does that matter?
Well, capacity,
14-inch juice,
all the way to the tank,
all up to the tank.
yeah.
No,
But this is coming from the well, so it doesn't,
You just going to have a 14-inch going in,
14 from the well out to the highway.
Okay.
It goes into a 10-inch. And then there's a little bit of a restriction because of the old line for a little bit, it goes to, but an 8-inch is all that's needed. And then we have anywhere from a 10 to a 12-inch going up there.
up to the tank,
Yeah,
okay.
but chances are, everything, yeah, like you asked before, everything that goes into theirs is probably pumped out of the well. And it sits in the system and pressurized in the system.
And then come back down the other way from the tank in the winter.
Back down the hill.
any other thoughts on Debbie? We'll go over this way, what
I
you're
just ask
thinking.
one question really quick.
Yeah.
Bart, on the, say it's a really heavy drought year, what's the capacity at that point in time? And where do you,
For the system, what do you think our capacity is?
yeah, I'm just saying under worst case scenario, like, can you still do this?
Our worst case scenario was 2018, when our springs, at the very lowest time, it went down to 220 gallons a minute. But now with our well, like I say, that well, we're authorized currently for 500, but eventually it'll, here shortly, it'll be 1,400. And we currently have 410 connections. And you pretty much need a gallon a minute per home is kind of how they get set on. So the current capacity with no additional wells, we have 2 additional well sites we can add into the system in the future. But we could serve in a drought year, okay, let me clarify, when I say 1,440 gallons a minute, the well pumps over 2,000 gallons a minute. But the state puts a buffer in there, they usually take about a third, just for that safety factor. So they've established 1,440 gallons. So we could serve probably 1,650 homes in a drought. Unless the drought gets worse than what we've had a couple of years ago. But, yeah, I mean, it could get worse. But with the well, it's incredible how much an aquifer is down there. Dwayne Johnson put a well in 300 feet away from ours. They tested it. They only had a pump that could pump up to about 1,600 gallons a minute. And they pumped that for 40, maybe 72 hours straight. And we had 1 foot of drawdown in our well with all that water being pumped out of that well that close. So a lot of water there. It's just got to be managed properly.
Thank you.
I have another question. Maybe I'm getting it confused when you came in with Frontier Estates, but didn't the well only have, you only approved for only, was it 200 and something or 300 gallons per minute with the existing wellhead protection? Or am I,
Yeah.
you just said it was 500, but what is it currently under the current wellhead
So
protection?
the well itself is approved to pump, we can use up to 500 gallons a minute. We have, as I said, okay, so the 14-inch comes down, then it goes down through, one section goes through a 6-inch line, our old original line.
Okay.
That is a restriction right now. If you've seen all the dirt work going on in Paul's field and Nutraceutical, the old Nutraceutical field, that's a new water line that will also be looped in. And with that, that'll give us additional capacity over to that booster pump area. But we had, with that 6-inch line, we were at 265 gallons a minute. And then we had, out of the well, and then we had, they brought our springs to 235 gallons a minute. So that's our 500 gallons a minute
With the springs?
with the springs. And then the 265, the difference, that extra 235 gallons a minute can come directly from the well into the low zone, as long as it's not going through the 6-inch line.
And it doesn't for this
And this line does not, this project's not restricted by the 6-inch line.
at all.
Yeah. So when you're talking about the upper, we'd have to figure, okay, what's in our 2 upper zones, if number 2, number 3, that we couldn't exceed 500 connections. So if that's about 2/3 of our connections, you've got about 260, 270 connections of the 500 you're using there. And then you could add that lower zone, but the lower zone also is going to be absorbed into the additional 235 gallons that the well has for now.
So your-
Complicated, huh?
Yeah, your wellhead protection right now is just the zone 1,
Yes.
500.
and you don't have, you're working on zone 2.
We, in January, we went through mitigation with Mr. Johnson, come to an agreement to resolve that, and he said he will sign that agreement. And we're waiting for that still to be signed. Everything's been done on our side, sitting on their attorney's desk, waiting for them to sign it.
And the
And as soon as
zone,
he assigns that, then we go from 500 to the full capacity of the well.
but the 265 gallons per minute is basically the zone 1. It's restricting you to only draw that much from the well right now.
265 is use in zone 2 and 3. Because that has to go through the 6-inch line to get to the booster pump.
Okay.
And so it can only take, that 6-inch line will only allow currently 265 gallons a minute that could be pumped up and added with the spring water.
But how much can you draw just with zone 1 without a wellhead protection in zone 2? Isn't there a limit usually? Don't they restrict the amount
Yes,
that you can pump?
because you have that 100-foot radius.
Right.
Then that zone 1, and the state set that at 500 gallons a minute. Our well can pump 500 gallons a minute with the zone 1 source,
And that's not with the spring?
without the spring.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I
the
was
spring,
thinking.
so
'Cause
that's
the
why I
spring
said,
adds-
we have the spring in the well, we have 735 gallons a minute if we're
Okay.
maxing every
Right.
bit
Okay.
of water that we're approved for. We've got a lot more water in that well, but that's what we're approved for.
So another random question, as long as we're talking about it. So, are any additional wells that come online, are they just gonna go straight up through that booster pump and into those tanks and back down for that loop?
Most likely, there is a chance we may run, we're gonna call that our west corridor that goes up through Whisper Ridge. There's a chance that we may try to go up Trapper's Loop, up to our property across from Trapper's Point, and maybe set another station, and then pump up higher if we need to get water to the highest elevations for future developments.
Last question. I'm
Yeah.
just curious, Marlon, on your well, or your tanks at the top, how big are they?
So we have two we have two lower tanks that were originally servicing the Highlands back up in the 70s, up to the 70s. We have an 80,000 and 160,000 down low, so 240,000 there. Another 250 higher up, and then an additional 700. So we have about 1.2 million gallons of water in storage tanks.
Okay.
That's an awful lot of talking from the water company and not from the applicant.
But I,
It's
But water's an issue, right?
Water
And it has
is-
been an issue for quite a few years.
Yeah.
What were we going to say, Deb?
no, I would like to see this issue resolved, not necessarily now, but before final, definitely, by the state
Okay.
or the Public Service Commission.
Any thoughts?
No, I just, that's, guess would be my concern is, there's that battle. We don't know who is actually going to service them at this point. So even though Highland's saying they can, but if they can't serve them for some reason and the other company, maybe the other company can't. I don't know. I guess they'd have to work that out, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have two options of doing that. The one that Shane, I guess, was talking about was the condition. The other one would be to postpone it until it gets resolved. I don't know of any other options. So those are kind of the things out there. We've had a lot of discussion. If someone's ready for a motion, I guess we can go forward with.
Just really quick, I know there's been a lot of discussion, I don't want to take much of your time, but we have known that water's the issue. We've known that for 36 months. We've worked in good faith with both water companies. We like both water companies. We don't have any ill feelings for either one. This is a business decision, and we've chosen to go with Highland Water. They've been reviewed by the state. We vetted it through our council. We vetted it through their council. We've met the statutory requirements. We're more than happy as a condition if you want us to go and ask the Service Commission. But these are not such as cities or any governmental agencies. Conduit Mutual is a mutual water company, and this is a private water company, so their boundaries are not. It's like Comcast and CenturyLink. This may be an example, and I hope that's somewhat reflected. But
Okay.
so I'm more than happy to reach out to this Public Service Commission. I don't know if they're really going to get involved, but I'm more than happy at final to provide some documentation from them that we're going to get, if that's.
Thank you. Anything else, or anybody ready for a motion on this?
Who wrote down the condition? Are you going to
Just-
make it a condition, or do you want to?
That's up to you guys. It seems like that's where we were headed.
Yeah, and also maybe a condition about that the concerns of the county engineer and surveyor. It is?
Yeah, I think it was it's one of the 9.
No. Because the stormwater and all that's been reviewed by the county engineer. So I want to make sure that,
Let me get to it. Okay, I'm trying to search for words. What page are we on here for?
54 is the conditions.
Thank you.
Could add condition to that point.
Okay.
It's usually on there. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's-
Right, so condition number 2 from Golden Hills is our standard.
right, that's,
requirement,
okay,
so you can add
okay.
that
We can add,
as well.
make sure that all those issues are addressed by the engineer.
Okay. We can take a minute if you guys are writing stuff down.
Mr. Chairman? I move to recommend approval to the County Commission for the Rome subdivision preliminary plat application number 21.008, allowing for a 183-lot subdivision of land located at 4950 West Old Highway Road in unincorporated Morgan County based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated May 27, 2021, and the following conditions. First additional condition would be the dispute between water companies be resolved before final plat. Did we agree before final plat, or did we want prior to?
Yeah, we said before final, but,
I was gonna let you finish, but
yeah,
the dispute between the water companies is a little broad.
yeah.
What I was kind of hearing you guys say was something to the effect of the State Public Service Commission confirmed that Highlands Water Company may serve CW Lands property.
If we just say the dispute between them and allow them to work it out themselves?
Well, we've been waiting for that for how many years?
Okay.
So we want to read from, we want to read that this will serve as,
Dispute just is too big a word for me.
Okay.
We need a letter from the Public Service Commission stating that Highlands Water Company may serve this 52 acres.
Okay.
Is that not the issue?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I
yeah,
would do.
that's
We
the
need to
question.
know that.
So let me
Yeah,
amend,
Specific for this.
let me amend that one.
Okay.
That the Public Service Commission provide a letter verifying that
Highlands Water.
Highlands Water Company may serve the subdivision. And condition 2, that the concerns of the county engineer in his report are addressed.
Get it all? Okay. So we have a motion for the positive recommendation with 2 additional conditions. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
So confusing.
I think I got it though. That's why I have to write a physical picture. So basically,
I think so too, but the numbers,
my house. A little pump, tank. Yeah,
tank.
tank. Right now, this is what we got right now. And then this was to this area. Tier 1. This is going over here. There was a restriction from getting this to here because of the 6-inch. And there's a lot of capacity questions about here because of that. But with this online at full capacity and this with the 100-foot well done, then basically this loop, this gets pumped up here, gets gravity fed down, and it gets pumped up
Right.
to the lower one. So this now no longer does anything in the lower one, it only does the... Well, that cleared out fast, didn't it? Good job.
Haley, please excuse Haley, she
Nope.
had a graduation to go to. And I know she's very sad that she's not here. She was sad all week.
I'm sure.
Was not giddy and happy she skipped out of the office.
Tell her just, hey, thanks for even stopping by.
Let's see. Next meeting, we have one item. We're going to do the public hearing on the 1,000-foot dead-end road modification. We've got a good draft of that. I think you guys weighed in on that.
For next meeting?
For next meeting. We missed a couple of review deadlines for some other smaller subdivisions. The June 27th meeting, we should have a couple items on there.
24th, today's 27th, 24th. Let's see, building permits have slowed down. We have seen that. Shortage of contractors, shortage of lumber, shortage of concrete.
Well, there's no shortage of lumber, it's the price of lumber.
No, there's a shortage.
Is there really?
Takes a while.
Anyway,
That kinda
you guys
goes
probably know
in.
better. I mean, last year we had biggest year ever, and then, we toyed on it a little bit. So, we still have a lot of subdivisions coming in, and various projects that we're trying to work through. Yeah.
There's lumber yards without floor joists.
I've been talking to people in Idaho, I'm not sure if there's any disconnect between some of the sources they're getting or not, but there's obviously, they're not building at the same rate we are, but
No.
that's why I made that comment.
And
How many building permits did you issue?
Shane, did you hear anything about a tariff from Canada on lumber?
I heard that,
They're gonna repeal it.
yeah.
They're removing
That's
it.
opening back up, so stuff's coming out. I've heard that,
Oh,
so that might help.
okay, I thought it was, I
They've
thought I
got
heard
plenty of wood.
opposite, that it was gonna
It-
create
It's,
even more shortage and higher
Not a
prices.
shortage of wood, it's,
well, it's like the floor joist TGIs. I mean, I ordered some 2 days ago, and typically I have them the same day. And I ordered them on one time, they told me it'd be 4 to 5 weeks.
Wow.
So it's just a mess.
We're having questions for,
Don't know what to do.
do you guys have any questions for staff?
Nope.
Do you have any questions for us? Did you get your grammatical changes input before we?
Our change, it was one change.
no.
Just the one?
Just one.
Me and Dustin teamed up and submitted ours before Chris got his change. So, if there's no other changes, someone want to make a motion to approve the planning commission meeting minutes from May 13th?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Aye first.
aye,
Aye.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
If there are, good luck.
We're done.